after Harry is pretty much it was from that going into Living Color for the most part.
Correct.
And what was that meeting like? Like, how did you? What did Vernon hear about you, or how did that happen?
I came home from school because my favorite band was playing in New York, Bush Rock.
Oh yeah,
the band that used to scare New York. Edward Denard, Ray Wesley Grant, and Del Mar.
Yeah.
So I tried to tell all my friends in school, this band will change your life forever. But nobody wanted to come down. So I drove down on my own.
Yeah.
I went to see Bush Rock, and Jocko was there.
Okay.
Jocko Pastorius. And I had played with Jocko at the Jazz Cultural Theater with a trio, which unfortunately, I shouldn't say that, but he played piano the whole gig.
Oh.
And he hired me and a bass player because he was writing that Word of Mouth record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was, it was crazy. Pencils in his hair, stopping the set, writing music, starting the song over again, the typical genius Jocko.
Right.
But Jocko was always, to me, a very lovely person. And he said, "Hey, Will, do you know this guy?" And Vernon was walking by. And I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, you two guys should meet."
No kidding. It was Jocko.
So Jocko did that in 86.
Wow.
No, 84. In 1984 at 55 Grand Club.
Right, yeah.
And I met Vernon. Yeah, man, cool. Went to Berkeley, finished my last 2 years, came back. He was on the radio with Greg Tate. I had a band called Dark Sarcasm at the time in Boston. And Vernon said, "I got a radio show. Can I play some of your music?" Sure. He loved it. I was trying to get a deal with Columbia at the time. Somebody at Berkeley recommended someone at Columbia Records to hear my demo. That was the advantage of being an engineering major and being a musician, is I kind of scammed the two things together and cut a bunch of really great music, which I'm going to release soon, by the way.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I've been going through my old 2 inches. But yeah, man. It was Jocko and Vernon. I came out of school. What are you doing? He gave me some early Living Color tapes, which didn't sound like the band then. It sounded more Weather Report-ish.
More fusion.
And Mark Ledford was singing on a couple of songs, and Mark was at Berkeley with me, so I knew Mark. So, and then Vernon started the Black Rock Coalition, and I went to a few meetings, and J.T. Lewis was playing drums with Living Color.
J.T.
And
wow.
J.T. left to do a tour, and Vernon asked me to come and do a show, and then asked me to join the band.
Remarkable. So it was Jocko. That's amazing.
Jocko Pastorius, man. And all that time, I thought Vernon was a bass player.
Oh, because he introduced you, right?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, so when he gave me the Living Color tapes, I thought that was him playing bass as well. And I was called James on bass.
Okay.
And then when I met him and he's playing guitar, I was like, oh, he plays guitar too. Then I didn't realize.
Right.
Yeah. I assumed, I should say, that he played bass.
Right. So it was a really organic meeting with him. This is long before the cultural awareness of the band. You were just musicians getting together really at that point. When did that, like what Harry Belafonte heard, the important message that was being sent, when did that kind of coalesce? Was that much later or pretty soon after you started playing with him?
2 or 3 years later, and Aubrey, to keep it real, I have to give credit to what was happening in New York at that time. It was a renaissance. And Spike Lee's films were starting to blow up. Def Jam was a record label, right? Hip hop was becoming mainstream almost. Graffiti was finally getting the recognition that it never received before, and still hasn't, in my opinion, now. It was post Basquiat. Lots of clubs in New York. The hip hop and rock thing started to meld. Run DMC was massive. There were all these incredible things going on. So
all happening.
Living Color kind of fit into it in some ways we didn't.
Right.
But I have to say, it was very fertile soil in New York at that time for that message and that sound and that creativity, because people were, in my opinion, starting to break the rules and really making things universal.
As far as writing the songs, like you mentioned, for instance, that the song we heard off the top of this, Pride, that was one of yours, right? So was the compositional process like you kind of bring songs to the band and then you'd work it out, or would it be more of a situation where like you're in a room with an idea and you present it? Was it written down? Was it oral? What was the composition, like the process that you guys went through at that time?
Living Color was all of those things. Obviously, Vernon started the band, so he had songs that he had already written. We just didn't play the songs the way he wrote them. You know,
okay.
Desperate People and I Want to Know and some of those songs on the first record didn't sound like that on the demos. The personality of myself and Muzz Skillings and Corey changed those songs, obviously. But Living Color has always been full songs, bring in, you know, someone has a song, you bring it in. Pride was a full song. I wrote the song myself. We just brought the song in and they played it.
Okay.
I love Vernon's approach to harmony because he's never going to play what you write down on the paper anyway.
Right. I've learned this.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've been in that situation with him as well. So he's going to Vernon read it. So you have to realize that. But he it's not in the ego where he'll ask, "What do you want?" He just his mind and his fingers are not going to do the traditional thing.
Right. Exactly.
It's gonna, you know, his brain is wired in a way where, okay, I'm glad you like that. Now I'm going to try this. You know?
Right.
But I like what he did on the two of the parts. The guitar riff line I wrote, and he played that on the in the verses. I was shocked that he did, but he did do it.
Okay.
Yeah, the process is very open, and we're not afraid either to, even if Vernon has made a few comments to me about a bridge, like maybe we'll, you know, make the minor chord a sharp 11 or something. If I were you, or maybe it sounds better. Everyone's kind of polite about it in a way, but the process is fairly open, and with everyone being so talented, it's great to bring a song in, even if you wrote it yourself, because by the time Corey gets to it, and then Doug gets to it, and Vernon, by the time you really, what comes out, and it's happened in reverse too, where we've had great things that we didn't, when we put our spin on it, Aubrey, it wasn't great, just to be honest with you.
Fascinating.
It was cool, but it wasn't great. It wasn't amazing. And we know the difference. So there's a lot of things I brought to the band that didn't work with the band, or things that I wanted horns sections on, and everybody wasn't feeling that idea. Or Vernon maybe wrote something with a different kind of a musical language he wanted to bring to the table, which maybe didn't fit into the language of Living Color at that time. So those kind of things, but it's never been one way of writing the music. We've always tried to, and a few things came from jams, you know, looping stuff, playing stuff live, especially the Stain record.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Before I move on, which I know you've done a lot of, you have a vast library now with Living Color. Which I remember when I met you, or it's long after I met you, but we were hanging once, and at that time, you felt that Stain was your favorite Living Color record. Is it still?
Wow. This many years later. That's
I
hard,
know, right?
Man. It's hard because I liked Stain when you and I were having that conversation because it was such a focused record. It wasn't like Time's Up. I never even thought Sony was going to accept it because it opens up with Time's Up, which is a hardcore song, and it ends with Solace of You, which is a high life West African feel.
Right.
They were all on the same record.
Right. So,
but Tommy Mottola, the president at the time, thought it was a brilliant recording. So he said, "Look, I'm with it." So we said, "Great." That helped that scenario, but it's hard. That's a great question. Now, you know, honestly, I'm feeling a little bit more Time's Up-y these days. And maybe it's because it's the 30th anniversary. Maybe it's because it is eclectic. Maybe it's because, unfortunately, all of those lyrics are dealing with the last 30 days in this country. So I don't know, but I was not a huge fan of that album.
So on to, as far as Living Color is concerned, you've played with, well, no, you may have played with 3 bass players. Now, it was someone before Muzzy, right?
Carl James, just 2 gigs.
Okay, but primarily it was Muzzy and Doug.
Correct.
Primarily. And like I know that, and you've talked to me about Doug's feel and time and what he's done for you with your time, which I can understand. Sometimes it takes the outside source to kind of show you where the corners are. Amin Ali was that for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was like that. He'd turn around and go, shake his head. Okay, and turn back around. But again, it was with love, though. You know, like I never felt bad. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. You know, yeah. I mean, it was like that. But I know Doug played a big part in just helping you feel the corners better, even though I always felt your time was real great. You know, what were the best qualities you found playing with Muzz?
Oh, wow. Muzzy, it's interesting, man. Muzzy also had a great time. Muzzy never got in the way with the drums. Mm-hmm. It's easy to play with Muzz because I never felt like rhythmically we wanted to lock on things, but our ideas were never like so far left and right. He's the first bass player I ever played with that I sat down with and I didn't know him, but I'm in a band with him. As drummers, you know, Aubrey, we always know the bass player. We know Damien Banks, or we know this one, and we know. So we got a vibe. But Muzzy, I knew nothing about him. I never heard of him. For New York, that's rare.
Right.
So when he came into the band, I didn't know. I was like, okay, you know, and he didn't sound like anybody really. He wasn't trying to sound like Marcus, or he wasn't trying to be like a jazz guy. He wasn't. He wasn't trying to, you know, he didn't have any pedals.
Okay, he was just
plug
and play.
He had a different thing. You know how we are in New York. We have our regional vibes between Queens and Bronx and Brooklyn and this kind of
Staten Island.
You know,
absolutely.
We Staten Island. We have our kind of regional assumption sometimes. Who's playing bass? I never heard. Where's he from? Queens. You know, because the Queens cats definitely have a high academic IQ.
Right.
When it comes to music, they have a whole thing about chord melody, and you know they like to talk. Badass cats. I can't front.
Ronnie Drayton, right?
You know, all of the cats are bad as hell. I can't. Lenny White. I'm just saying. In the Bronx, we have a fish sandwich. We don't really talk about that kind of stuff. You know, we'll just have a fish sandwich and go, yo, Aubrey, man. So, yo, you ready to play this tune?
Right? Or what?
We don't try to do the threatening dialogue before we actually jump into the. That's the difference. But Muzz was definitely out of the way in a good way, and unique in that I never played with a bass player that was coming to the table with what he was coming with. You know, harmonically and rhythmically, I think he was the perfect hybrid between Vernon and myself, because Muzzy wasn't familiar with harmonic music as much as Vernon and I was, and for him to step into that situation sometimes, and growing up in Queens and playing with guitar players that were playing, you know, serving more hamburgers, I should say, you know?
Right.
You know, Vernon was not trying to serve any hamburgers, you know? And I mean that, you know.
I understand that,
academically, he was a vegetarian when it came to chords. So, you know, it was just adjusting. Muzz would laugh sometimes that it would just be adjusting to that. But for me, a great hybrid between the rhythmic side of the drums and the guitar, and you talk about, you know, most popular aspects, and just getting out of the way rhythmically and still joining me but not blocking. Right.
Cool. So I want to move forward with some music now. Let me see if I can get this up and running. Okay, all this technology trying to mess with it. Okay, there we go. So this little excitement I'm going to put on is definitely one of my favorites, and I got to pick your brain on it a little bit. So check this out.
Okay.
Woo! Yep. That's very serious.
That's a very nice ballad you played there.
Right. One of your softer moments, right?
Yes.
So that turns out to be a 16-bar drum intro once the band comes in, aside from playing. So first of all, That was done at Longview Farms, right? A studio up in
Oh wow, that's right. Yep.
Massachusetts, right? So
Yeah.
I did a record there once, and after you had mentioned it with another band, I remember that's a cool room. They got the horses,
Great.
you know. It's
Great place.
Great place, beautiful people.
Yes.
So you got the 16 bars. Was it like, all right, Verna's gonna play an intro, and then we're gonna play 16, and then we're gonna get into the tune? Was that the kind of vibe as far as, or was it much looser than that? He's going like, are you kidding?
I wish Aubrey, I wish that's the way it went down. I really do, even today. But no.
It was not like that.
It kind of happened that way because we originally started This Little Pig by just starting the song.
Right.
And then Vernon said, we got to have some chaos because this was the Rodney King time,
Absolutely.
the Rodney King situation. And those are the samples that you hear in there with him going pow, pow. And, you know, that we had all little samples from that, from that scenario. But it was an experiment that went the right direction because I wasn't sure if we were going to do 16 bars originally. We had 20 bars. Vernon didn't want to count. He wanted to build it up and get a feel and then go into where we were going to go into.
Just like
and we tried that a few times.
On cue kind of thing, right?
Well, he felt like we're going to know when we're there. And in the recording studio with headphones.
Right. That's easy.
You know, we had a few train wrecks. We had a 20-bar intro that was also great.
Okay.
But in my opinion, we didn't lock into the time as good as we did with the 16. So we chose between two.
Okay.
Originally, the idea was to have an improvisational build into the song and feel it. We wanted to kind of feel it. And the feeling it was, I guess, practicing your bow and arrow skills with the blindfold.
Right. So I'm actually gonna, you know, for the folks on my channel, I'm actually gonna break your playing down a little bit on that one. One of the things I know that you like to do on the bass drums is you do these 4-stroke roughs where your foot will play right, left, and then either snare drum or a tom. Those roughs, I think you played a whole bunch in that little segment. And the thing that was cool about it is where you place the snare drum, often it was on 1. So if you weren't counting, it would feel like it's on 2.
Yeah.
And it would sort of, without losing the time, it gives the effect that like the music was amorphous. He really didn't kind of know where 1 was. And it took a while before I understood what was happening. You know, I had to really focus and go, oh, that's what's going on. You know what I mean? So was that intentional, or is this that you felt it that way at the time?
Well, most of it was intentional because I'm setting up, with hardcore, the snares on all 4 beats. So given the 1, I was trying to give a little bit of a leadway that I was going to come into the song with the hardcore beat and not a pocket.
Okay.
So the idea of, because with the 1, 2, playing one off, I said if I played them more on a 2/4-ish thing, which I did on one of the other takes, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I came in with the 1, it sounded funny. It almost made it sound the opposite of what you're saying. Like I was lost.
Oh, interesting.
And then I kind of found it, you know.
Right.
So I said, you know what? Let me fool around with this, but let me dictate a little bit more 1 of this snare. So when we get to the hardcore section, it almost slides into it, and it's not like it takes a beat to turn. It'll go, oh yeah.
It exactly does that. It literally slides in, and then it's almost like you're going up a ramp, and then it just sits at the top of it. You know what I mean? As opposed to having to get up on a stair or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So so it was intentional, and it was an experiment.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Let me make sure I got the right vibe here. All right. Like, when y'all go to that halftime, that's just like, what? But I remember when that came out too. I had to sit down and just take stock. But you know,
that's my favorite all-time Living Color song to play live, hands down.
I bet. In fact, let me read this. There's a GoPro. I think you did a GoPro video of yourself. That's up on YouTube, and Vincent McCroskey said, can play speed metal, jazz, funk, and fusion. My favorite drummer.
Wow. Okay.
I said, yup. Check, check, check. That's pretty much it. Now, of course, my question about that, this is a two-parter for this song. My question about that is, and you do the same thing live. When you start this piece, you give, basically it's 3 downbeats. That's what it sounds like. And then the last
Correct.
one, you're into this, hyper groove thing. So what kind of cue is that? What's everybody thinking? Because you never miss. So what is going on?
Time's Up is the one song that I love playing for 2 reasons. And I'll answer your question. One of them is I love playing the song. The second one is it's the only time the band is completely focused on the music like it's an SAT exam, It's like it's the only time everyone's like, I'm not gonna mess up. You better not. I know one thing. I'm not gonna mess up.
I'm not messing up.
Because Time's Up is the song where if one thing is out,
it's over.
It stands out like an elephant.
Yeah.
So from the jazz guys, when you make a mistake, the guys call it clam. You made a clam.
Right.
So I used to keep small clam sauce jars in rehearsal, and whenever Time's Up, I walk over to put it on put it on your amp. Like, check this out, man. It's better if you don't heat it up, man. Put it on the clam fresh,
Oh my
that's
goodness.
Aubrey, that's a real band song. That's us being brothers and knowing each other, because it's not a cue. And they know that I'm never gonna do the 3 hits the same. And they're always like, the first 2 hits, they ignore me actually. And the third hit is when I can tell because they know that I'm gonna just do it. I purposely don't want them to ever think I'm gonna do it the way they think I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
So that's why the focus is so high on that song.
Yeah.
And Corey probably has the most lenient position in the beginning of the song, because he's usually laughing in front of my drum riser anyway, watching Vernon and Corey kind of watching Vernon and Muzz Thug's shoulders tighten up.
Right.
But yeah, man.
Wow.
I mean, that's a song that we can do in our sleep. I can say proudly, because we all know each other, and that only comes from trust and respect and investing a lot of time into the music. And now it's fun to play, because even if I spread those things out, all right, some nights I shock them when they're like, okay, we're gonna be Time's Up, and I play all 3 of them in a row, like crack, crack, crack. Like, but they're never off. They come in on the one.
Okay.
They're never really off.
Right.
So I haven't. I think I'm gonna be honest with you. In my career of that band, maybe we've played that song. We made mistakes as a band 3 times, which is
unbelievable.
Really, really. I can't give that number for the rest of the songs. But there's something about that song that's really.
Right.
We're kind of proud to play that song. Really,
Right.
Because it sounds great when it's played properly.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Yeah.
It's an amazing challenge. But yeah, it's a totally improvised intro.
Okay.
And we really focus a lot on each other. And there's times, and sometimes Vernon forgot that the guitar solo's only a certain number of bars, and he's got to wheel it in.
Yeah. Come on back.
Yeah, you hear all of those kind of things. So it's kind of it's fun, man. It's a fun song, but it is our Aubrey. All of these years in, the thinking caps are on during that tune. It's not a joke. It's very military.
Well, here's part 2 of Time's Up, and you kind of answered. This is probably different, but you kind of answered my question for this one. But check this part out. Again, I had to take stock. I had to sit and go, okay, let me see. Now, now. So you're going up to double time again, but you might have a little voyage getting there.
Yeah.
So are we dealing with a quintuplet? Are we dealing with triplets? What are we doing in that climb? Are you even thinking of it that way anymore?
Well, I'm not. And here's something I gotta say funny. That's funny. We played that song so many years, and one time at sound check, Vernon was still plugging in his gear, and Muzz and I were playing a song. And he left a note out of that riff, and he told me I played an extra note. And I said, no, that's the way I played on the record all this time. He goes, no, it's not. He's adding a note. No, you're not playing a note.
Oh, no.
So what we didn't realize is there's one note Muzzy was supposed to play. Maybe it sounds good that he doesn't. So it's like a ba 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 ba. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
So you're increasing the time, right?
Right.
But it on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Then Muzz leaves a gap and goes to the, and you'll hear the timbali on that 4, on that fill. You'll hear dun 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 gang boom. And I was using the timbali to end the phrase, but all of the time he thought I was just throwing an extra note on what we agreed was going to be that riff.
Okay.
And all of these years, and maybe it was 2.5 years or so later, we were at a sound check, and I was like, no, man. He's like, no, you're playing it wrong. I said, no, you're leaving a note out. So, Aubrey, you've been in bands before. You know how that you know how that goes, man.
Yes.
And we laughed about it after 5 minutes of arguing about it because we did it right on the record without realizing
it. Yeah.
We actually did two different things, but the idea of, obviously you can hear, very influenced by the Bad Brains.
Yes.
During that time, I mean always, but certainly during that time, we recorded a few things. They came to see us record Stain because we were in Woodstock, but very heavy Bad Brains influence. And the idea is the 5 is starts it out, and then the 4 beats speed up.
Oh, okay.
The four, yeah.
So it's sort of like in classical music, it's accelerando basically.
Accelerando on the if you got 9 beats, accelerando on beat 6.
6, right.
Yeah.
But the 5 is even.
The 5 is in time. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Boom.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's
and then again, because you play together, you all feel that accelerando the same way.
Yeah. Vernon didn't want to discuss it. He didn't want to discuss it.
Right. Let's don't think about it too much.
Vernon was like, I got it. I said, are you hearing the 5? Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. He did not want to discuss. Muzzy and I were arguing about a little bit. He was like, guitar one, like, let me know when you're ready to play the song.
Okay. You know? He was like that. Right.
Yeah, he didn't want to
dissect it. No. That's fascinating. Okay. All right.
And
Muzz go ahead.
Played it that way, and ironically, Doug coming into the band he heard all 9.
Okay.
So and we're playing it with him. He played all the notes the first time.
Okay.
So that's you know what I mean. That's like the difference.
Right. All right. So now we're moving on to post or just after 9/11 with Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
Which is was a very intense record because of where the world was at the time, and something that I don't know if this was or who this. First of all, where was Kaleidoscope recorded? Was that up at Doug's place? Is that how that was?
It was in Connecticut at a friend of Doug's place. A little bit. We were meandering in the New England area. Is the best way to put it. Connecticut, Mass.
Up in
this
there.
Other guy's garage.
Okay.
At a tough time for the band, Aubrey. We weren't all on the same page. Honestly, I think you can hear that in the music. You know, we weren't, the band wasn't really like united like we were on the first 3 records. We were working our way back to getting back together.
Right.
So I call it the couch record. I call it the psychology couch record. It was, we wrote songs and we got together and then everybody was on the same page.
There's some therapy going on there.
Yeah, with therapy, we're getting together to go, okay, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't any hard feelings. It just wasn't the energy and level the first 3 albums were.
I still find it a brilliant record, you know.
Thank you.
I still do. And a couple of things that really stood out to me, I'll go over these real quick, was a couple of sonic things. And the first one is this right here. You know, like in the basement, you know, with one mic.
There you go.
That's pretty much it.
There you go. That's the vibe.
That was
the snare sound wasn't something everybody was a fan of, but I felt like, you know, we should sound like we're in Smitty's bar while they're loading in the liquor, rehearsing, doing the sound check with the door open.
I kind of like the snare sound because of that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that, and I was thinking punkish, a little bit of UK vibe on there as well. Yes.
Right. And was it literally a stereo mic in a room? Is that how you
No. We bastardized that recording.
Okay.
All the songs were recorded the same. Then we pulled a lot of mics down.
Okay.
Kept up like 3 mics, distorted the overhead cymbals, the microphones so the drums could sound. So we actually dialed that in.
Okay.
But yes, the intention is what you said, to have that one mic in the basement vibe.
Right. And the other one, let me see if I can find it here. Right here. All right. The other one, I guess now you kind of explained my second one, which is this one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oof. Woo.
Missiles and tanks, we got.
And clearly you're emulating like military hardware.
Yes.
Very clearly. And it was the retaliatory strikes to the U.S. at that time in the Middle East. Pretty much, you know. You even got, you know, machine gun-like sounds on the snare drum with your fills. So basically, like I said, you did the same thing with this as you did with Operation Mind Control. You just went and tore up the recording how you liked.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Very
to get
effective.
the stat, you know. Thanks. We got some hate mail from that, but life is beautiful.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's when my ears perked up, honestly, because look where we were at the time.
Yeah, we got some real red, white, and blue military fans that thought we were taking the piss out of the soldiers, and we were not.
I don't think it was like that.
No. But you know, it sometimes, Aubrey, with that scenario, talking about it makes people feel like you're being anti. You know, I mean, it happened to Dr. King, in my opinion.
Just by talking, right?
Yeah, his people talk about him in this amazing way. But I have to remind people sometimes that his death, his approval rating was at an all-time low.
Right.
And he spoke out against the Vietnam War. And even conservative African Americans and Christians were not against that war. So he took the heat from a lot of directions. But you know, art is that way. You know, you have to be honest. And what we try to do in Living Color, as you know us the whole time, sonically, lyrically, you know, we want to paint the picture to tell the story and not to be shy about it. So yeah, we went after that military sound and the machine gun sounds and the very mechanic stuff and the war games kind of a sound.
Because it is what it is, isn't it?
And put the Living Color vibe in there with it.
Right. I think that those are the 2 tracks that, I mean, again, I feel like the record's brilliant, and those just really stood out to me of not pulling any punches, you know, but a kind of bravery, if you will. Was that self-produced, that record? You guys did it yourself?
A lot of it was. We had producers. We did some of that out in Prague, the Czech Republic.
Okay.
I have to give Doug Wimbish credit for that kind of vibe because he brought that on his demo. He had the idea for this song, not the lyrics, but the music. He brought that that shade to the track. Like he had an idea with he programmed. He's a great drum programmer. He programmed some cool drum patterns with these kind of edgy things, and then I said, cool, let's stay on. Like, you know, it's like someone bringing something in, like, yo, man, that's that drum idea. I'll stick to that, you know.
Just jump on it.
Bastardize it a bit more. I'll get some other samples of my own and get some more crunchier sound. But when he walked in with the track, in my opinion, Doug had about 70% of that sound dialed into his demo.
Okay.
So we kind of just put the stuff on top of it. And instead of having Corey have a distorted voice, we felt like a clear voice was necessary.
For that one.
With all the distorted,
In general, the way you construct your drum parts, you strike me as someone who thinks more about the music than the drums even, in a lot of ways. The drums are subordinate to whatever is happening, and then you sort of come to it. Is that correct?
Well, you're spot on. I like to know what the lyrics are. I think drums are a very emotional instrument, and you can get romance out of drums. You can get hatred out of drums. You can get revenge out of drums. You can get jealousy out of drums. You can get envy. You're romantic. There's all of these things the drum set possesses. Excuse me, and it depends on how you want to deal with it. How you want to, it's like anything. A flower to some people could be they just tear it off. Some want to smell it. Some want to taste it. Some want to do all three. So that's what the drum kit for me is, and I think it's very important in approaching music in a way where I know what the lyrics are. I like to know what the chords are. Sometimes even Vernon and Doug sounds like maybe for this song is so warm. I'm gonna go with a 5.5 wooden maple snare, medium tune, because that's a definition of warmth. Or I'm gonna use the kick drum with a pillow to give it a softer vibe, and lower the pitch at the times maybe. Even the fills, keep the fills, in Love Rears, I wanted it to be edgy, but I wanted it to sound romantic. I wanted the beat to be funky and romantic and disturbing, because love was one of those emotions where, it has a lot of sides to it. It's not always, wine and roses, sometimes it could be the War of the Roses.
Right.
So, that's my idea in approaching drum parts, especially in this band, is to know the lyrics and the story and to try to design my parts, hi-hat time, thinner hats, heavier hats, eighth notes versus 16th notes. All of these, I like to try to take the emotion from the song and put it into my drumming.
And have that guide you. Yeah, I understand that. I can tell that, actually. That's very evident in the parts you come up with. I thought it was important for you to express that. Thanks for watching my video. I'm really glad you did that. Subscribe and click here if you want more performance and lesson videos.